Speaking of the Wolverines, they are at Minnesota. This is the game of the week for me. I know it's a little bit lighter slate this week, but this one, it's very intriguing from a national perspective even. Very intriguing. It's the 7:30 kickoff Eastern Time on ABC. Joe Milton, like I told you in the Michigan preview, PJ Fleck doing exactly at Minnesota what I would do. He's finding the nearest microphone, and he is saying things like, Joe Milton is a once-in-a-decade quarterback. Therefore, if he beats you, no big deal. And if you beat him, we just slayed the giant, baby. So, same thing in play here. Been talking about it all offseason. Same thing in play here. As much as there's some turnover with Michigan, as much as you got four new offensive, you know the talking points, four new offensive linemen, a couple of new wide receivers you got to replace, and the quarterback situation, well, they also got some overturn and some churn, if you will, on the staff, at least, at Minnesota. Sherrock is out. Mike Stanford's in. Comes in from Utah State. What are they offensively in week one? I think that Minnesota is extremely vulnerable in the secondary early in the season. So, what is Michigan typically? Well, they're not a bomb away on your offense typically. If there's going to be a philosophical change, then I think it needs to be fairly evident, like the snap of a finger, fairly quickly. In this game, week one, waste no time. If Joe Milton has that arm talent, if you are truly faster at receiver, if you're Josh Gaddis and you want to show it off in week one. I think they're going to. I think Michigan will make a surprising number of plays, explosive in nature, down the field, and I think they're going to end up winning this game, and I think Michigan's also going to end up covering in this game. So give me the Wolverines in week one. A game you could also argue as deserving of Game of the Week status. My Iowa State Cyclones, bias alert, are on the road at Oklahoma State. Cowboys a 3.5-point favorite. This is a mid-noon or mid-afternoon kickoff, 3:30 Eastern Time on Fox. Now, Oklahoma State, have you even seen them? They're on milk cartons lately. They haven't played in like 3 weeks. I don't like that. We wondered at the beginning of the season, for these teams who have to take a break due to COVID in the middle of the year, is added rest going to be a benefit for them? Well, so far it's been the opposite. Granted, the sample size is limited. I haven't liked teams getting a whole lot of rest. 1 week, okay. Couple of weeks, or even further than that, don't like it. I remember this game last year. I think I watched every down of it. There were 2 screen passes that just killed us. #we, Iowa State. Let's not allow that this year. Now, I'm counting on Iowa State doing something in this game that I think people would expect from Oklahoma State, and that's having a heck of a day on the ground. This is a good Oklahoma State defense. I think that the running game for Iowa State will be able to get the job done enough to not only cover that 3.5-point spread, but I think the Cyclones win outright. And you may say, Josh, you're biased. Sure am. Moving on, Penn State is a 5-point favorite at Indiana. There's a lot of intrigue. I know that this does not qualify as Super Bowl status or anything like that. There's a lot of intrigue. You hear what I said? I did not say Penn State is a 16 or 15-point favorite. I said 5 or 6, depending on where you look. So this is a mid-afternoon, keep saying that, mid-afternoon kickoff on FS1. Penn State's questions, every question surrounding this program, I've listened all week diligently, are being shouted into a megaphone. You got the offensive questions. We just talked about a lot of this with the new offensive coordinator. Micah Parsons opted out on you. Journey Brown, running back, he may be done for the entire year. And you got Ohio State coming up next week. Hidden in all this is the fact that I think Penn State enjoys a pretty sizable line of scrimmage mismatch, both sides in this game. And I also think they possess the ability to really control the game on the ground in the latter stages. So not only do we like Penn State to win here, we like Penn State to cover. This looks like a sucker bet. I know it does. We're fine with it. Our numbers like Penn State. We will gladly take Penn State to win, and we will take them to cover. Much to the delight of the league office, because I don't necessarily think you want an 0-1 Penn State team in that Week 2 matchup against Ohio State. Speaking of the Buckeyes, not a lot to talk about in terms of who's going to win this game against Nebraska. Buckeyes a 26-point favorite. This is the Saturday noon Eastern Time kickoff on Big Fox. Our numbers scream Ohio State to cover. They just scream Ohio State to cover. In fact, our computer model spits out a cover probability. Ohio State is in the 70s this week as cover probability. Now, granted, Sometimes when you have week one, there are just flaws in the system. It hasn't been calibrated properly. But even so, it's rare to see a 70%. But Bud Elliott and I were talking about this earlier. When you have any kind of model, any kind of system that spits out a number like that, you just take it for granted that there must be something in the market that you're not seeing, that your numbers aren't picking up on. You'd almost rather it be 60% instead of 70%. We bet 60% games all the time. When it gets up to 70%, I say, no, there is no 70% edge in the betting world. It just doesn't exist. I don't care what in the world you're doing. If you're betting on stuff this high profile, there is no 70% edge. So having said that, the secondary is something I think bears close watching in this game. And that spread, so let's talk about it within the context of that number. Ohio State minus 26. I've had a lot of you text me and ask me if that's free money. Doesn't exist, friends. Doesn't exist. However, here's the thinking. If they're up 52-10, then it's not a big deal. Of course, they're going to cover. But I'll tell you what also could be the deal in this game. More like a 45-21, where there is a lot of backdoor potential for Nebraska because you've got a secondary still trying to find its sea legs for Ohio State, and you got Nebraska, who you know good and well is going to throw the ball until the very end, trying to find themselves. And so you have a comfortable win that all of a sudden gets inside that 26-point margin. Now, I'm going to take Ohio State to win. I'm going to take them to cover. I'm just not rolling with it in an official capacity. So we're not putting anything on that aside from our stamp in this here game preview.